today we're going to talk about how to deal with uncertainty in a relationship. Hey, I'm Antia, creator of the Magnetize The Man Method, and for the last 10 plus years, I've been helping thousands of single successful women to magnetize the right man for them without any more trust issues, and of course attracting emotionally unavailable men. So let's go ahead and dive right in how to deal with uncertainty in a relationship, because here's the thing, right? If you are an anxious attachment style, and there's another video on that I've released, I released lots of them actually, and you identify as an anxious attachment style, so have I, right? Like you will actually have much more of a challenge to deal with uncertainty, because we really have to talk about there's different kinds of uncertainties, right? There's sort of different levels of uncertainties. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So here is number one. The first uncertainty that you're going to encounter in your dating, in your romantic relationship life, especially in a relationship, is of course the emotional uncertainty, right? And that of course comes with, it comes a little bit with experience. It comes a little bit with, like with being together for a while. And then it also depends on how did your partner grow up, like what's his model of the world? How was he loved? How was he not loved? How was he not communicated with? So that's a really big piece, is really knowing how to navigate emotional uncertainty. So first off, what's really important is like what triggers you, right? Like how do you know what triggers you into emotional uncertainty? Because it can be many different things, right? It can be, hey, normally he texts me smiley faces and tells me he loves me, and tonight he didn't do that, right? Or normally he calls me 4 times a week with a cheery, happy, joyful sort of like, energy about him, and today he didn't do that. So there's like different levels of uncertainty in a relationship, right? So in this particular case, you have to understand, okay, what happens is it's not necessarily it's a worst case scenario, because what your brain does is what it knows best. It knows the worst case scenario. Please don't go there, right? Because it's really important to know that there's many different aspects in relationships, it's very complex. And don't forget, your brain deletes, distorts, and generalizes reality all day long according to your unconscious expectations. So if your unconscious expectations, and I want you to be honest with yourself, is to be disappointed, to be abandoned, right? To be neglected in some way, shape, or form, to be betrayed, right? Or even to be hurt, of course, then guess what? As soon as you encounter uncertainty, you actually project that very fear into your world, right? And guess what happens is it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So you say, okay, well, expecting to be disappointed and hurt, so then you're going to delete all the times when your partner was actually loving you, calling you, being there for you, being considerate, sending you cards, whatever the case may be, acts of service, all of that you're just going to delete. And then the distortion, how that's going to look like is like really, oh, well, like he did this, but he just helped me because he felt guilty, or because he just told me he loves me because, he thought that's what he should do, right? So it's like this kind of like a little bit being dismissive and devaluing the action of your partner, right? That's another way how you really distort reality, and that's really serious, because that's not fun. That's not fun for him, because basically you tell him your emotions are not real, right? Your communication is not authentic. And essentially you're telling him, I don't trust you. So that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, because he's like, well, if she already doesn't trust me, right? Like, and he can't do anything about it. Well, then at some point, it really becomes that reality, right? And then the third piece is, of course, generalization, right? And that would be like, oh yes, of course, all men say that in the beginning. All men say in the beginning that you always wanted, never expected miracle. All men are lying to you, right? Or all men are, are not great communicators, whatever the case may be, but you go in massive generalization, right? So that's number one. It's like really knowing, how to deal with uncertainty. If that's the level of uncertainty you have, again, a problem well defined is already half solved. So if you know, okay, wow, this is what's going on for me, then the question is, okay, where am I distorting? Where am I generalizing, right? Where can I catch myself? And then what's really interesting is, and then I'll give you actually an example, is then you actually be like, wow, isn't it interesting? What's going on right now that my brain wants to generalize? Something huge is happening, right? There's a massive opportunity, a massive shift in our relationship that may even be really for the good and for the better. But my brain actually makes sure I go into fight or flight. Like, why is that? Because that means you're creating actually something new for yourself in your life, which is a good thing, right? Because if you're an anxious attachment style, and you wouldn't really watch this video if you weren't, that really means like, yes, you want to experience something new, because the old would mean you're going to repeat the same pattern how you grew up, right? So that's number one. It's really like dealing with the emotional gamble, And so to give you an example, right? So of course, I actually, I was dating a lot before I met my husband that I'm now together with. We've been married for 5 years. And the night that he met me, he told me that I'm the girl of his story. Now, funny story about that is, okay, let's talk about generalization and this and that, right? Because so here's the thing. Wow, I have all the certainty now, right? And what does my brain do? Well, am I crazy or is he crazy? So right away, I went into distortion, right? Because I always see this, oh, I just need to meet the right man, I just need to figure this out, right? And it's not about that. So that's number one. And then number two is, then I said, oh, well, that's just friendship, because, this guy is like so confident and he's so himself and there's no drama. That must mean, again, it's like distortion / also like a little bit of generalization, right? Like, oh, this is just a friendship, right? And so on and so forth, right? So I just like kept telling myself those stories, even though I had the dream man in front of me, And so I want you to see where you're doing this in your own life, right? And so that's number one. So then number two, there's also uncertainty, not just emotional, right? But also there's a lot of uncertainty sometimes that is just actually really mental, And what I mean by that is that you want to have answers that you don't need the answers for right now, right? So for example, let's say you just met him 2 weeks ago, right? You don't need the answer right now if he's gonna propose to you, right? Because right now, the biggest thing you should be concerned with is really getting to know him better, and knowing if, and like getting to know him and seeing if how he chose to show up, to present himself to you on the first few dates is actually who he is, right? Woo! I know, that's big deal, right? Because what do? You assume, because of course you love certainty, right? So you assume that who he is on the first date is who he is, and I hate to tell you that, girlfriend, I hate to take the, let me break the news to you. That is not necessarily the case. A man has many, and a woman too, many different facets to her, many different facets to him, right? Like, you don't know what his upbringing was like. You don't know what relationship he has with his family. You don't know what relationship he has with his work life. You don't know what's going on with his emotional world, right? And so on and so forth. You don't know what attachment style he is, right? You can give it a guess. I usually could give a guess if I was to hear. If you were to tell me, I could probably give you a very, very educated guess what attachment style he is. Right, but there's so many things, because we want a fairy tale, we want a happy ending, right? We're like, finally, because the thing also is, if you've been yearning for it for so long, right? If you've been yearning for it for so long, then like as soon as the man comes in, right, it's like, oh, this is it. this is the right thing. This man is gonna take the place, right? This man is takes sort of like the placeholder, so to say, right? Because the cup is empty, I want to fill the vacuum with this man, right? And then you actually delete the stored, you delete that he maybe didn't ask you if you want a drink too, or you delete that he may have mentioned something where there's like some very dysfunctional patterns in his family, right? Like, so you delete a lot of different things, all the red flags you're deleting first of all, right? And then you find yourself in a relationship, in a dating dynamic, right, where you encounter a lot of uncertainty. Because now let's talk about the last level of uncertainty, and that is really lack of communication, right? So now look at it this way, right? Sometimes it's really like sort of self-imposed uncertainty, right? Because the truth is, like, you can ask questions, right? You can make requests, you can express your desires, you can express your opinions. So sometimes you don't do that, right? So you might be like with the man who's like, I don't want to rock the boat, right? So I'm just going to be, I'm just going to be okay. And I'm just going to be accommodating. I'm just going to be like, sort of like the chameleon, right? Whatever is needed, I'm going to morph myself into, but the problem with that is like that you're losing yourself. And you're actually not speaking up when something is incongruent for you, right? So for example, wow, you're really noticing he may talk a lot about himself. He focuses on himself. He doesn't ask you any questions. Or maybe he even dismisses you, right? And you don't say anything because you think, well, I've been just knowing him for a couple of weeks, and maybe he's just very stressed right now. He's probably in his head, and we know men don't they think more, they don't feel as much, and if he's more single focused. So what do? You give him like so many benefits of the doubt, so many excuses, right? Versus actually saying, okay, no, like, okay, so I need to make sure that what I think, what I say, and what I do is always in alignment, right? And if that's always in alignment, then I don't have to worry so much about like dealing with uncertainty, right? Because I know I communicate clearly, and then I attract a man into my life who communicates clearly as well, or I'm bringing that out in my man that I'm already dating, right? So like really saying in the beginning, hey, well, I just noticed, I would have loved for you to, to ask me what I want to drink, or I would have loved to, whatever the case may be, I'm curious, I'm noticing, like I noticed that you walk into the door and you might not be aware that I'm behind you to leave the door open for me, or whatever it is, right? So we can definitely use nonviolent communication in that. We're obviously not using attacking communication in that, obviously. So, so that's like really a big piece. And that's why I want you to take responsibility. It's really the communication piece, right? Versus being passive aggressive, hoping he's gonna pick up on it, which, girlfriend, he won't, okay? At some point he will, but that's already when it's way, way down the hill and you have accumulated so much resentment that you're not even able to have a healthy, functional, and just really, really highly dynamical relationship with him, right? Because there's so much unspoken words and so much betrayal towards yourself. And that's oftentimes also when the betrayal happens in a relationship from the other partner, right? Because they feel like you betrayed yourself and you're not saying something, you're incongruent, right? You're withholding something and they don't necessarily know what it is, right? And then they start actually betraying you, right? Because you attract who you're being. So if you're betraying yourself, you attract that betrayal in another person, right? Or even worse, when you leave yourself, you actually attract that in another person, right? Like, so you attract a man withdrawing, you attract a man leaving, and then you feel you're left with that uncertainty that you certainly don't want to feel, right? So we talked a little bit about like how to deal with uncertainty in a relationship. And so I just quickly at the end here also want to address exactly about uncertainty in general, right? Because so here's the thing. What you really want to become good at is how to live in uncertainty with an open heart, right? Because what you do right now is as soon as you get into uncertainty, you actually close your heart, right? You actually get ready for war, you put on your gear, right? And you have like a sword and a shield, and you're ready to go to war, right? And you're ready to protect yourself. Why is that? Well, because you have a negative connotation from your past that's connected to uncertainty, right? Like when you were a little baby, uncertainty meant sometimes I don't get the milk. Yeah, sometimes I don't get the very needed affection, that warm, comforting feeling that I really, really desperately need, right? So therefore, I need to make sure I protect myself, right? Because I cannot, under no circumstances, fall into this deep gap of desperation, of hopelessness, because that's really what a baby is going through, right? When it goes through the anxious attachment before it really hits that, before 18 months old, when it realizes the mom doesn't come every single time, which was the case for me. I grew up in an emotionally absent household, and I had to really work through many, many years and massive amounts of first dates and lots of nights where I would just like write down. One night I remember, right, like talking about uncertainty. You know, I was actually, one night I was so desperate because I liked this guy and he didn't call me. He hadn't called me in 3 days, even though he called like every other day. So I got really, really anxious, really like a panic attack. And I kid you not, I wrote 137 times trust on one piece of paper, right? So that's like another way how to really deal with uncertainty, like stay open, stay open. If you do nothing else, do yourself the favor to stay open. Why is that? Because if you can train yourself to stay open, you actually attract a man into your life who's also open, right? If you close, you're gonna attract a man into your life who's also closed, and who's going to be an anxious avoidant, who's going to be an avoidant attachment style, who's going to withdraw, who's going to be panicked by intimacy, and who really, frankly, becomes your worst nightmare, right? So those are my keys for today, for you to learn a little bit more on how to deal with really like anxious attachment in a relationship, and how to heal from uncertainty, heal that uncertainty, deal with that uncertainty in a relationship. So if you're like, gosh, Antia, there's so much more that I need to learn. You're so right. I get those panic attacks. I can't stop thinking about him. It's so addictive. I hate uncertainty, but yet it happens so often. I need to learn how to have a much more powerful relationship with it, so I can actually stay in my power and stay congruent and confident in the times when I don't hear from a man. Then I invite you to come on a Magnetize the Man clarity call with me, where we get crystal clear of what's getting in the way for you. What is the linchpin, right? What is that golden nugget that's missing for you? What's your vulnerability threshold after which you shut down? All of that we uncover, so we can actually help you to have this deep connected long-term relationship at the end. So for that, hop on over to magnetizetheman.com, magnetizetheman.com. Grab your slot as long as they last, and I'll see you on the other side. Take care. Much love. Mwah!